buenas noches.
Gracias primero a todos por asistir a lo que es la última conferencia de la serie de Arquitectura y Crítica, que comenzó con Fulvio Irache, Juhani Palasma, William Curtis y hoy acaba con Jacques Gubler. Jacques Gubler es un arquitecto suizo, arquitecto y doctorado por la Universidad de Lausanne, conocido fundamentalmente por su labor de crítico y de escritor, crítico en Casabella y profesor en universidades americanas como el Instituto de Tecnología de New Jersey, en el Instituto de Arquitectura y Teoría e Historia Crítica en Lausanne y recientemente en el Politécnico de Lausanne y en la Academia de Arquitectura de Mendrisio. Es un honor para nosotros tener esta noche a Jacques Gubler y no solo por esta conferencia, sino por el tiempo que pasa con nosotros y con los estudiantes y alumnos del Compostela Summer Program.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias, Carlos. Well, I'm afraid I'll have to speak English. Hope you're going to help me. First of all, I'd like to thank not only Carlos, but also Oscar, who helped me, and I had the good fortune to meet Oscar when he was, one of these exchange students with the Erasmus connection came to Mendrisio. Also, I must thank my colleagues, that I followed the lectures, and my feeling is that I'm learning a lot, also from the students and from the critiques, the wonderful critiques I followed, with Antonio. So it's a cultural shock for me because it's my first time in Santiago, and I do feel, in a way, you might say, displaced. Also, I must thank the students because I'm trying to learn a few words for them. Particularly, one of my one and only loves in life, reinforced concrete, and I want to learn to say reinforced concrete in Chinese. Gang Jin Wang Tong. Gang Jin Wang Tong. No. Yeah. Gang Jin Huang Chong. Wang Chong. You should help me. There was a lot of confusion here in my cabbage, my cabbage. And as you say in Serbo-Croatian, there was a qui pro quo, because I was going to bring a lecture on this argument, nationalism, internationalism in modern architecture in Switzerland, but it happened that my discs were corresponding to another research which has been published, and you find that now this Jean Chaumet architecture at full scale. So since you had this confusion in my suitcase, I'm going to use these discs. And there are going to be 3 parts in that talk. The first part is a general introduction to Jean Chaumet's architecture. The second will be a case study on a building he did at Vevey, the headquarters of Nestlé. And the third part is going to be a film which documents the building at Vevey. So there is an enormous mass of documents which arrived suddenly. It was about 10 years ago at Lausanne, at the Polytechnical School, where I was responsible for the beginning and the development of an archive. I made the catalogue of that fond, on the Chumi papers, you might say. I found various themes in architecture just from looking at such materials. And one of the themes is related to his love, but what I call the full scale. Why should he draw details at full scale? This is one of his obsessions, and we're trying to ask a few of these questions. He was fortunate enough, when being a student at the Beaux-Arts in Paris, to meet a sculptor there called Edouard Marcel Sandeau, who's specialized in animal sculpture. And this man became one of Chumi's friends. He was also one of the CEO, chief executive officer of a chemical firm in Switzerland. And through the introduction of Sandeau, Chumi was lucky enough to meet, many Swiss industrialists, in particular the people working under the name of Nestlé. So this connection is important because I think if you understand a building, you first always have to say, who is you might say, the client? The client, the patron, you might say. And in this case, this is the answer. Sandeau was a sculptor. He was also a voyageur, and there it is. He was a strange man because he was a double formation. I mean, he was a capitalist, yes. He was a scientist. He was also a sculptor, and he was crazy about white animals. One of his wishes in life was to transform the color of animals. He was improving with chemicals. He wanted to grow red pigeons. He tried to do so, and he succeeded in a way. As you might have seen, some of these flamingos are pink, provided they eat pink color. And this is what Sandeau left after Jean Chumi's death. And these are three of Sandeau's sculptures in front of the headquarters of Sandeau at Orléans. I'm going to talk about themes in architecture. What is a theme in architecture? It's something of an obsession according to the definition given by Oswald Matthias Ungers. You, as architect, are supposed to develop obsessions, and these obsessions you will never leave. They will accompany you all through your life, whatever your age. You might be a young architect, you might be an old architect. You will keep your obsessions. So as far as Chumi is concerned, we'll have this obsession or this theme of architecture at full scale 1-to-1, échelle grandeur, as one says in French. Then another theme is what I call the postage stamp. I mean, the sketch at a very small scale, the scale of a postage stamp. And then another obsession is the variant, is unable, as we shall see, to think of a project without developing a series of variants. Now, how is he going to use this variant, particularly in a point which I will call strategy of seduction in front of the client? Corporate architecture, this is a theme which wasn't so present in Europe, at least until the 1950s and 1960s. We shall try to understand how the architect is able to develop a corporate architecture in relationship with the idiosyncrasies of its clients. If you work for IBM, it's not the same as working for Nestlé, for instance. Now we shall see that Chumi is a man on the building side, and that he has a double formation, not only as an architect. He went to the Beaux-Arts in Paris, but also he studied at the School and Institute of Urbanism in Paris. And we shall meet him at Stockholm, and we shall see what he's doing about a project. It was Paris Souterrain. The extension of the city, of the metropolis of Paris, is underground immediately before World War II. Now, I'm just going to show you a few works he did at Lausanne before closing this first part of the program. I think. Oh, I was trying to. We don't need that light, but. No, you want it? Oh, well. Well, this is a flagpole. It's on tracing paper. It was meant to be at the mast of the Nestlé Pavilion at the World Fair in Paris 1937. It's quite an impressive drawing when you see the original, because it measures something like 2 meters. Tschumy's father was a cabinet maker. He was producing furniture, and this is one of the reasons why his son, who worked with his father, was accustomed himself to work in full scale, because scale 1:1 is the usual scale used when you are a carpenter and want to build a stool, a chair, an armchair, and obviously a carpet. And this is a carton, or a carton for a carpet. And this you develop at scale 1:1 before it comes to the process of weaving. So there is a regular logical evolution from the fact that before studying architecture, he was working with his father near Lausanne at building furniture. So before World War I, he was born in Geneva in 1904, and then the father moved to Lausanne because there were more opportunities to work there than ever in Geneva. So you might say that the son went on, you see, in the track of following his father's examples, and it's very common in these dynasties of where practitioners that the son should, you see, become more important than the father. And I'm talking about dynasty because probably you heard about Bernard, you say in New York, or Bernard, you say in Paris, is Jean Tschumy's son. But Bernard didn't exactly follow his father's wish. In fact, when his father died, Bernard didn't yet know he was going to study architecture. This is an ashtray. It's very common piece of furniture. The ashtray was part of the furniture at that time, where you might have seen Miss smoking his cigar. This is an uncommon ashtray because it's one of the directors of Sandoz, and it's one of the military people in the Swiss army, and they are related to this idea of the sword. But it's also a very elaborate exercise in the use of metals. And the foot of this ashtray is loaded with these grains of metal, of lead, which made it such that this ashtray never, moves in such a way that ashes fell onto the carpet. This is fairly strange because it's a study for a cornice in reinforced concrete. It's it's studied at full scale, and it's related to the attic, the 6th floor of this labs at Sandoz at Orléans. And there you have the combination of the variation, you might say, of the sketches is a very small scale. This is a detail of the attic. And this is a goutte pendante. This is the phenomenon. How are you going to cope with the rain? It's a joke. It is a joke. And his dessinateur, well, he was using for in his office in Paris, as well as on his second office in Lausanne, his best students to do his office work. And this drawing has been done by one of his students. And this is, you might say, a caricature of the boss, of the patron. That was the word they used in French. Now, coming to his formation in Paris, he was integrated, or he chose to go into Jean Pontremoli's atelier. No, Emmanuel Pontremoli's atelier, and he was constantly participating in competitions. So to get this first medal, the Concours Rougevin, it's an annual competition they had at the school in Paris. The program itself was the study of a postage stamp. And what did he choose? He chose to combine some of the main monuments making or building the silhouette in Paris, whether you might say modern or ancient buildings, and the top of the cupola is the presence here of, you probably know this building, it's the Pantheon. Now, it's very impressive to look at the concentration of the intensity. We find simultaneously the use of the variante. It's a study for an armchair. It's very small. Schumichet chose the example or followed the advice given to him by one of his masters. His master was called Jacques-Émile Ruhlmann. Ruhlmann was a cabinet maker. He was producing in his atelier, in his shop, furniture. He's one of the leaders of the Art Deco movement. Ruhlmann's success first came into existence, into being, into international notoriety during the 1925 exhibition in Paris. And Ruhlmann was telling his students, now, please, try to concentrate your attention into the very small scale, because this is where you're going to capture the greatest intensity in the study of the project. And once you found, this is typical of the Art Deco, what it's Art Deco is leading to, what you might call this streamlining now. Once you've selected your variant, are you going to develop it at full scale? So from the intensity of a small sketch, you go to the full scale, and it's constant movement of, you might say, zooming. But the strange thing about Schumi is that when he's developing an architectural project, in this case it's going to be a competition for a veterinary medicine hospital in the University of Zurich, is doing exactly the same to find what is called the partie, which is the way you're going to treat the various parts of the program into a whole. So he's studying this at small scale, using the so-called, this is Ruhlmann's word, postage stamp technique, and studying what is going to develop in order to participate into this competition. And there is an enormous intensity, not only, but I would say beauty on these sketches. And the frame thing is generally, I know many architects who wouldn't keep these as documents in their archive, but there are thousands. I'm not kidding when I'm saying thousands of such documents which have been kept by the architect. Why did he keep it? Because they thought, I might want to refer to that when it comes to another commission, and so I'm going to gain time. Or I might want to give this sketch or this idea to one of my collaborators, and he's going to develop it, and I'm going to go back and see what he's doing. So he has kept everything. I know that Luigi Snozzi, for instance, always eliminates this kind of nonsense for him, for Snozzi. But this is full of sand for Tschumi. I'm friendly with these people from Barcelona, Esteban Bonel and José María Gil, and they're practicing, along the same technique, mixing the various scales. These are sketches for a library in Lerida. They didn't win that competition. So it's a coincidence, you might say, in a way. There is a lot of precision in such a drawing. And you see the relationship between the furniture and the cornice, or the configuration of the building. This portico is like a table within the library. Well, it's a coincidence, and this is purely empirical, and I was glad to find this in Tschumi, because I developed the research on Tschumi after meeting Bonel and Gilles, and the two things were growing together. Now we arrive to this idea of another theme in architecture. It's the practice of the variante. We are in Geneva in 1960. It's a competition for the World Health Organization, Organisation Mondiale de la Santé. And within the office, within Jean Tschoumi's office, he opens a competition between his various collaborators. I'm not going to enter in detail into this program, it's a building in a park. It has a big auditorium, which you might see here. This is one solution. Would be another solution. It has a secretary which is going to be permanent, and it has to secure offices at the moment of the yearly gatherings and discussions. Two different hands. The competition is open inside the office. And this is very interesting. North is here, but now during the night you have the patron is coming and is looking at the work of his door, and what is he doing? Now suppose you combine your plan like this. So this is what you're going to, because this is Jean Tschoumi's hand. So are you conscious that drawing so, you're going to build such a configuration? Very quickly, Emmanuel Pontremoli, it shows this atelier, and this atelier was famous for the virtuosity of its rendering, and Tschumi was a virtuose, was definitely a painter. One of the questions I asked is this habit of the variante. Is it part of Pontremoli's teaching, or is it a personal habit? I'm not sure if I can give a true answer to that, but my feeling is that Pontremoli very much wanted his students to develop variante. This is a precise site at the Place de la République in Paris, and the program is the seat of a big administration, could be a bank, for instance. And the same for the facades. This is a variant, you see. Or I could develop, but look at the windows, or look at the order of the pilasters. They are different, or the treatment of the ground floor in relation to the mezzanino. Now, what about corporate architecture? This is the moment when Nestlé's headquarters in Vevey are inaugurated. This is one of the two directors. He's looking like a true butcher. The others are politicians. And this is one of the first opportunity for Tchoumi to try to create an image. You might call this architecture parlante. You might have heard about that in relationship to the work of somebody like Ledoux. This is the true illustration of the main, you might say, preparation of Nestlé. It was not chocolate, no, it was flour. Yes, farine lactée, so literally milk, flour. It was a synthetic, element, nourishment of the babies. The logo is the idea of the small nest. Nest, yes, nest in German means, what does it mean? Nest, like in English. And Nestlé literally means little nest. It was the name of a German industrialist and chemist who came to Switzerland to develop his patents. It was a later incident that such flour, milk powder was introduced into chocolate and to make smoother than black chocolate. So what underneath the cylinder? Well, you had this cupola. It's the world panorama. And this is a very dynamic process. It's a spiral, turns. It was built during that exhibition of Art et Technique 1937 in Paris. It was a first contact. It was leading to other opportunities for Tchoumi to build for these people of the, food industry or chemical industry. I told you about the use of the variante. He was fortunate enough to be commissioned for the whole of the furniture. He was talking to one of the directors. This Enrico Bignami was an Italian-born one of the two directors of Nestlé, and said, "Now, Mr. Bignami, you have a choice between this and that. What do you prefer?" Bignami chose that. Now, Bignami identified himself with Tchoumi's design because of that. He had the feeling that I'm going to decide the way the architect is going to treat and organize the program. Of course, in Tchoumi's strategy, the main decisions about the structure, about the composition, about the organization of the plan was his. But he did left open some, variant. This is the French word. And so he did also with the people of Sandoz. It was his first commission was for this building in Basel. And there you see his way of using seduction. One of the directors, his office. Do you want this or do you want that? Oh, you want this set of color or this set of color? It was, I would say, clever enough also to leave space and room for his colleague Sandeau, who was the sculptor, to add his own beauty to the furniture of that council room. We're going to see Tchoumi at work, and he's a man on the building place. He has an enormous interest in the technical fabrication and the use of the various material, and in particular, Ganjin Huang Tong. Ganjin Huang Tong. Ganjin Huang Tong. Yes. Yeah, all together. Ganjin Huang Tong. We might improve in a few minutes. You know. It's a very impressive because it's a piece of prefabrication, 1955, within a frame, the first frame building this facade. It's the western gable. He introduces these heavy prefabricated elements with the geometrical game of a frame within a frame. The picture was taken for the man who was moving the crane, and this is a completely other program. It's a grain silo, one of these containers. You pump the corn at the top of the building, and the corn is introduced into various compartments, and by gravity you can empty such compartments. It was a surprise to discover here a conversation between the architect and the contractor. This is a very clever and very elegant building. I'm using the word elegant. I don't know about your perception of the word elegant as far as architecture is concerned. If you do consider or not that elegant is required, or that elegant is a positive word. Is elegance in architecture, is it necessary? Is it positive? Is it negative on the contrary? What's your feeling about it, about the elegance? Because you might say, I want to be essential. If you are essential, you don't need to be elegant. You can be crude. You can be rough. But maybe you don't need to be. I don't know about it. But Tchoumi was perceived this ideal. Elegance, you might say. He did use the word, and his architecture does, in a certain way, show elegance, which might be related to this strategy of seduction he's using in front of his clients. What about the word elegance? Shall we make a test? Say, who thinks that elegance is a plus in architecture? Who? Elegant? Nobody. Oh, good. Well. So elegance is rather minus for you. But what do you think? Are you going to be elegant in your sketches? No? Or maybe it's not a good question. Well, or maybe you tell me on Thursday. An attitude, you said. Oh. Mm, mm. Well, thank you for this answer. I mean, some architects have tried, I'm thinking of Adolf Loos, of making relationship between the way you dress yourself and as part of your identity and the way you're using the materials. But that would be maybe another lecture. It's another lecture about... what? Yes? What did you say? Yes. Yo.
No debería consumir excesos. Debería ser una cosa pura y sincera, elegante. Y la arquitectura también debería ser como esto, elegante, pura, sin excesos. ¿Sí?
Now the question will be, when I'm going to show you the building Jumi built at Vevey for Nestlé, if you think this is elegant or not. For instance, this is the way he's building the portico. Because the building is a portico of reinforced concrete. It's a very elaborate reinforced concrete treated as a sculpture. And then he has a steel frame on 6 levels which is put on this portico. It's a fairly intricate way of preparing technically also it's part of it is pre-stressed. He was constantly working with very talented engineers, and particularly 2 of them. This is an example of Alexandre Sarrazin's work in reinforced concrete. Sarrazin is very well known for the invention, and you might say again, elegance of his bridges or the technical solutions he took. Maybe it's not apparent for people who use of the building. It's certainly apparent for people who take pictures of such buildings. This is the way he's testing, or they, because you have 2 engineers here, one for the reinforced concrete and the other for the steel frame. They are testing the building at scale 1:1, you might say. They have started to do so with a mock-up, you say. The practice of the mock-up has developed at that moment. There again, the picture is taken from the top of one of the cranes. We're facing the lake towards south, and you have this strange haze, which is typical of what's happening in winter. They have even to work in winter because the 2 directors are in a terrible hurry, as we shall see through the film. Now, let us come to this competition. He was very young. He had finished his studies at Paris, at Pont-Rémolli. He was taking part into this competition for the master plan at the center of Stockholm in 1932. It was an important competition. Over 250 offices from not only from Europe, but also from United States, South America take part into this competition. And there he starts using this idea in reference to, of course, the images. This is 1922, and you recognize one of the proposal for Le Corbusier Ville Contemporaine, 3 million inhabitants. This he had studied when he was at the Institut d'Urbanisme. This idea of the central axis between where you're going to put l'autopista. But it's strange that he should, come to use this technique of the postage stamp to study the different variants. Well, almost, this is rather funny. No, funny, I don't know, maybe it's interesting that you think you are in a plane now and you're flying over the city. The way when architects have started to use this vision of the city from the plane, it completely changed the perception of the territory. This happened around World War I. I'm sure you cannot talk about the landscape even if you walk, even if you take the Camino, without relating to what you know of the territory from what you have seen from a plane. It's impossible. You're going to decipher the geography from a plane if you know what the different techniques in agriculture are. There are some states in the United States where you find the presence of a grid. Now, if you fly over Virginia, yet you see they have copied the agricultural techniques of England. And this you see from the plane itself. This is the way Tschumi concentrates his attention on this competition. It's roughly the north-south axis. This is the center of the Royal Palace, which is the central building, which you see here on this island. There are, I told you, thousands of such small sketches on tracing paper. Now, this is also interesting because it's a trace of what? Yes. One of its fags of the cigarettes have fallen upon the paper. And so the paper was burnt, and there are also hundreds of such traces in his material. He was constantly smoking. His son used at Christmas to give him a box of 200 cigarettes. New Year, everything had been smoked. Yeah, the son has told me that. So maybe he wasn't smoking when he went to bed and slept, but and his students had to smoke. You could not be an architect without smoking at that time. Yeah, you see. This one I particularly like because it's almost like looking through a hublot, and this is one of the themes, of course, in Le Corbusier. Now, in this competition, there is a lot of variant because he refers not only to the projet of Ville Contemporaine, but also to another theoretician called Hilbersheimer. We shall see this in a while. And there, in this competition, is going to not give just one. You were supposed, yes, to draw your sketch as a photo composition, but two. And is going to be eliminated in the first round. This is utopian. We don't need that. And he was very proud of that elimination because Le Corbusier had been eliminated for the same reason. This is utopia. We don't want this. central axis. Well, first foreground is the Rouen Palace, and some of the buildings are maintained as signs in the territory, like the church or the park. The grid pre-existed from the end of the 17th century. This is one of the other references, which is Hilbersheimer, and he knew that book. That book was in his personal library. This is one of these visions of Paris at night, American bars, La Coupole. It's one of the well-known café, brasserie. We are at Montparnasse, and a lot of stories about different artists, poets, painters, spending time and time on La Coupole. This is a sketch, a perspective I did for Pont Tremoli. It's dated 28, might be 29, I don't know. There is a French expression, entre chien et loup, between dogs and wolves. This kind of strange light there is. It's not dark yet, but it's not night yet. We are between dogs and wolves. And this is the kind of light, it's a very, you might say, pictorial drawing, charcoal thing. The speed is there, part of the poetics, maybe also of the drawing. Now, imagine that there was a group of architects, not only in France, but particularly in Paris, but not only, were thinking about the future of the metropolis being underground. And this plan was submitted to the reflection of the public, as they said, in 1937 at that World Exhibition. And Chaumet was responsible for the construction of this model, where he used neon tubes of different colors, superposition of the various networks. So the ultimate networks to be added, now you might see, does correspond also to, this is Bois de Vincennes, for instance, still there. Well, this is a well-known Montmartre and Sacré-Cœur. There are already networks there, like the metro or the sewers. This is much more radical. Well, how is it possible to think in a utopian way that the future of the metropolis was to be underground? This sketch was discovered, 10 days before the opening of the exhibition. It shows you the colors of this model, because we only have black and white pictures for that. And the son was particularly moved because he thought he was doing the same himself. The moment the arbitrary, this is not an arbitrary superposition of networks, but Bernard said he was, when he won his first competition at La Villette, proceeding along the same way without knowing it. And to finish, this is a proposal he did for an exhibition, a national exhibition, which was taking place at Lausanne in 1964. But nothing was, and there again, the 300 meters tower in reinforced concrete with Alexandre Sarrazin, nothing came out of that because he died in the night train between Paris and Lausanne He had an office in Lausanne, an office in Paris. He developed the school at Lausanne. And I have a friend who's a painter and architect in Leuven, and he's practicing a technique of watercolor, what I'd like to call critical nostalgia. I told him about my interest in Tschumi and the fact that people from Nestlé, his customers, were organizing, you might say, well, field trips or voyage d'études to go and study what the architecture of the United States, not only in Manhattan, but the way these pharma companies were organized, mostly in New England and near Washington, and in New Jersey, which is one of these states where the pharma industry is very important. And they were copying, interpreting, because to copy is to interpret, not only the constructive systems like the use of aluminium, but the corporate habit of these companies. Like you're not going to stop to work at 12 o'clock and start again at 2 o'clock. Now, you're going to stay and have a meal in 20 minutes, and you have a pause of 3 times 20 minutes, and you have the self-service, which is now incorporated into your presence during a full time of production within the headquarters of Nestlé. Talking about this example. The Constellation was, the plane which covered all the beauty of the, aluminium, plastic, and what else? Streamlining. And it became as poetically and very much as Charles Eames' furniture, an example to be emulated by Tschumi, and this is a chapter which you might find in the book. It's called about Americanism. He was trying to use Charles and Ray Eames and Harry Bertoia. This is Bertoia, for instance, and his own furniture. The building finished at Vevey received an award, an important award given by the American aluminium industry. It was the so-called Reynolds Prize. And now I'd like to switch let me try to be clever. It's not very easy. Oh, well. No. What I'm trying to do is to find a second program. What shall I do? Can you meet? Oh, well. Oscar's coming. Oh yeah, that is this. Thank you. Yes, that's the one. But this is a wonderful portrait. It's difficult to find a portrait of Tschumi where he doesn't wear a cigarette in his hands. And even at school, when he's drawing on the blackboard, he holds the chalk as if it would be a cigarette. The picture was taken in 1960, immediately after the Reynolds Award. So we have the two dates. The lecture is divided in 4 parts. Well, seduction and use of the variante, a man on the building site, and then I'm going to do a paragone, one says, a comparison with the UNESCO building in Paris by Zerfus. There is an emulation between them because Zerfus was a friend, Tschümi's friend at Pontremoli's. And when Zerfus was building the UNESCO in Paris, Tschümi was building the Nestlé's headquarters in Vevey. And, well, this is the final success we're going to reach before launching the movie. So these are what Nestlé themselves, Time magazine reportage called. These people are butchers. And Nestlé form them and send them into the world. Then they come back and they give their life practically for the sake of this company. These are the local politicians typically behaving like Swiss local politicians. They also, they're not butchers in this case, they're peasants who say, oh, you don't know, I tell you, I'm a peasant. Now this is this famous plan. I'm going to call this an Ypsilon, you might away. And it takes the place of the former hotel, which was here. It was the Grand Hotel, which accounts for the presence of a pre-existent landscape. It's not only here the harbor, but also the trees in this park, which are going to be maintained. The city of Vevey had an idea of selling various plots and having a quarter of villa, but Nestlé bought the whole, and then they built this headquarters. I could talk about the contractors, which play a very important role. You might see in the movie 2 engineers. Sarrazin was a specialist in Ganjin Horn Tor. Please. What? Ganjin Horn Tor. No, maybe you say it better than I do. Ganji. One ton. Oh, sorry, you don't help me very much. You leave me alone. Oh, I'm not very pleased. And we have to talk about the architects, and I'm going architects in the plural because Nestlé has hired a local architect to follow exactly what's happening on the building place day after day. They're working in Tschümi is going just once a week. But then it was possible, looking at the archives also, to find at least these 3 dessinateurs, you might say. They were all pupils by Tschümi at the school in Lausanne, and they were still alive. And each of them has put his initials, so LV for Leopold Veuve, on the tracing paper. And this is Bühlmann. He is responsible as an architect for the quantification of the program. It's very important. How big is the thing going to be? And these were a few. They require a headquarters with an office building for 1,500 people. These figures you might be unimportant, but what is very, very important is the fact that the overall price shouldn't exceed 40 million of Swiss francs. And it's exactly, even Tchoumi saved, well, not very much, but 2 million. He might have spent 2 more million, he didn't. Because in front of these people, the businessmen, the two directors were following week after week, month after month, what the architect was spending. And sometimes they question the price. Even they said that no, we're not going to pay so much for your engineer in reinforced concrete. So he developed a strange technique in seduction, because this is a collage. It's literally pieces of cardboard. They give you a simulation in perspective of these brise-soleil, for instance. This is going to be built in aluminium, but now, but this is necessary in order to enter into contact with these two directors. Well, like all civilians, you might say, they understand perspective rather than section or plans. And this technique is fairly strange. It's unprecedented. I haven't seen it a second time. Now, the architect asked the director, the direction, where do you want to have it? Do you want it at the bel étage, the second floor? And you have this small protruding box. It's going to be the expression of your offices. You say, oh, no. We don't want to appear. First, we want to be in the middle. So let us put us on the third floor. And they're going to be here. We don't want to be in the attic, because the attic is too beautiful for us. We want to share the view with our collaborators, our personnel. We'll have the attic over there. Because I know Philip Morris headquarters at Lausanne, they had a wolf. Director was a playboy, so he had his small playboy apartment in the attic. This is a proposal in variant for the location of the director's headquarters on the second floor. They don't want that. These are awful drawings. No, they're not by Tchoumi himself, but one of the most brilliant collaborators. This, again, perspective, I'll show you that. Do you want your office to look like this or like that? Oh, well, we'll rather have it blue. And the same systematically. This is the boardroom. This is the waiting room. From facade to facade, now you see the naked steel structure. And everything is going to be furnished, decorated. It all starts with this kind of moment of destruction of the Grand Hôtel. This is the justification for the party, is that you can combine everything within this epsilon. You'll notice that what's happening in Paris is quite different, because this is a dovetail. It's not an orthogonal structure. No, it's a dovetail. It might make it more elegant. Everything is recuperated because they transform in the landscape. This is the underground garage with natural light, and above this the platform. This is exactly what it is. It's a platform, portico, and the horizon will be the lake. The portico on the platform. See, picture taken in the winter before the most. You've seen the film. The workers are coming from Italy. This is the horizon. Only it's hazy. You might imagine there's a lake there. This is part of the pre-stressing of the platform. And now on that platform, what do we have? We have this frame, and this frame is steel. It's painted red. The ceilings are going to be poured within the aluminum form, so that the form for the concrete of the ceilings is part of the structure. It's a patent which was developed in the United States. It's a very expeditive process. If the steel structure is the form for pouring the concrete, you gain time. This is the geometry of the underground garage. This was quite an innovation at that time in Switzerland. Also the strange fact that the architect wanted to bring the light into the underground garage, which not very many architects wants to do so. I think some have done so in Santiago. And you see that there, the road going underneath, or there, there's a service road, follow the geometry of the curve. That part of the building is symmetrical. The two aisles here are not. Another interesting thing here is that in this attic, you have a suspended garden. It was one of the prescriptions the municipality or the city of Vevey had given. In this part of you should have a lower building. You understand all this better in section. The elaborate portico with this kind of geometry, the central corridor, the lateral distribution. Is the projection of the geometry of the portico, this kind of canopy, the double staircase you'll find here, reinforced concrete treated as a sculpture, but for that it was a very elaborate plan d'armature. The dovetails, it was very proud of this corrugated sheets. It was a technique used, of course, in aircraft industry. It opens like you say, abanico. How do you say in English? Abanico. Yes, a fan, yes. One of the pictures taken with the Kodachrome 1960, geometry of the ceiling and its projection in the pavement. We'll look at the armchairs or look at double staircase in aluminium. It was, well, quite an accomplishment. I don't know if you can use the word virtuous. Is virtuosity part of architecture? I don't know. I have seen here in Santiago, there is even not only a double spiral, but you might say a treble spiral. Not far from here, which is an incredible staircase you should all go and see. There it's the museum in front of Caesar's building. It's a way of controlling the non-mixture of the people. That people going to the second floor shouldn't mean people going to the third floor. No, it's not the case in Vevey, but it's probably the case here. Now there is a fight about this picture because the Sun wanted the picture to be published like that, whereas it was taken from heaven down to the earth. He thought it would be much more beautiful to have it thinking like, this is how the picture should be taken. This is how the Sun wants it to be seen. This is the attic garden. And it's part of the leisure the people can do during the, after or before the meal, after the meal, depending on the 20 minutes you want to pick up for your lunch. This is the wonderful cross-section published by one of the engineers, the engineer responsible for the steel construction. And now we enter into this comparison with the building by Zerfus. Of course, it was published under the name of Breuer and Nervi. You know, Nervi is the Italian engineer from Torino, specialist in reinforced concrete. Now, there is an emulation, because Zerfus is one of Tchoumi's good friends. They studied together at Pontremoli, and it is an emulation. Some of the now, the reason why you find an epsilon here is completely different. It's a contextual building. We're on the axis of the Eiffel Tower. You find here the École Militaire. Yes. And these buildings do exist with the Place de Fontenoy. So it's a very clever way of being in context, closing the square and opening towards the park. The auditorium here is separated from the secretary building, which you find here, where we've seen that the building in Vevey is an object, is a sculpture in a park. Again, the building in Paris is symmetrical. Here, you can see. You see, it's the way it's orthogonal here. Also, it's very, you might say, brutal. It doesn't want to be elegant. We know Tschumi went on the spot, visited the building during its construction. And they're entirely different. Again, a comparison between the two situations. You see the Reynolds Orwood, $25,000 in 1960. He has to fly to California, where the Reynolds industry is situated. The reason why he was awarded the prize was innovative value, Polish aluminium. This prize no longer exists, but this prize was directed, you might say, by Gropius. He was the president of the jury. And it was organized every year. It was quite a success because there was something like 35 candidates in 1960. Well, just the beauty of the picture. There again, the Americanism, this integration of, you might say, I don't know, elegance, speed, streamlining into architecture in Europe. This might call streamlining. And these are the ladies waving at us and thanking you for being so attentive to, well, the poor things I was trying to tell you, and now try to be clever another time. I don't know. Maybe I should ask Oscar. Or maybe I can do it. Now, the problem is how you're going to document a building. I tried to promise my colleagues, students, that I would try to you cannot be an historian, an architectural historian, without talking the history of the building on the building place, on the site.
23 avril 1960, Vevey, inauguration du centre administratif Nestlé, concrétisant toutes les lignes de force de l'architecture moderne. L'auteur de cet événement architectural, le professeur Jean Tschumi, recevait à cette occasion une distinction rare, le Reynolds Memorial Award, et expliquait les raisons de l'attribution de ce prix.
Les Américains ont été intéressés surtout par toutes les nouveautés de l'utilisation de l'aluminium dans le bâtiment.
No, but this we don't know. You should.
« 23 avril 1960, Vevey, inauguration du centre administratif Nestlé, concrétisant toutes les lignes de force de l'architecture moderne. L'auteur de cet événement architectural, le professeur Jean Tschumi, recevait à cette occasion une distinction rare, le Reynolds Memorial Award, et expliquait les raisons de l'attribution de ce prix.
Les Américains ont été intéressés surtout par toutes les nouveautés de l'utilisation de l'aluminium dans le bâtiment. En particulier pour la marquise d'entrée. Cette marquise d'entrée avec 11 mètres de porte-à-faux, avec de simples tôles légers profilés, est exceptionnelle de conception et de réalisation. Les Américains ont été intéressés également pour tout ce qui concerne les brise-soleil. Et cette utilisation leur a semblé une nouveauté et pense qu'elle peut faire évoluer la conception de l'aluminium dans les façades de l'architecture en général.
Une déclaration permettant de comprendre comment tout commence. 3 ans plus tôt, le grand hôtel de Vevey vivait ses derniers instants. Acheté par l'entreprise Nestlé, le Grand Hôtel, vestige d'un luxe révolu, devait céder la place au nouveau centre administratif pour lequel le professeur Tchoumi avait conçu plusieurs maquettes, dont une en forme de Y, qui remporta l'adhésion générale. Curieux destin que celui des matériaux du Grand Hôtel. Les tonnes de gravats de ce témoin de la rivière vaudoise de la Belle Époque, permettant finalement de combler les rives du lac et le port de la propriété d'antan. Seul subsisterait désormais le souvenir de cet édifice qui compta jusqu'à 140 chambres au temps de sa splendeur et qui connut nombre de vicissitudes durant son existence, servant notamment de logement pour les internés durant la guerre 39-45, avant d'être reconverti et que la présence en particulier dans ses murs des joueurs italiens lors de la Coupe du Monde de football en 1954 ne suscita des bordées de sifflets d'un public survolté à l'issue d'un mémorable Suisse-Italie. Dorénavant, les pierres du Grand Hôtel connaîtraient un destin plus calme, utilisé en particulier pour la création d'une digue et d'un chemin public propice à la promenade en bordure du lac. À cette époque déjà, les préoccupations de l'environnement existaient et l'implantation du nouveau centre administratif permettait de sauvegarder la majeure partie des arbres du parc, le Y du bâtiment s'inscrivant dans les éléments naturels de la propriété. Avec les premières excavations du grand chantier proprement dit, l'architecte exécutait la phase de son programme prévoyant un volume de construction à implanter dans le terrain en tenant compte des contraintes imposées par le pourcentage d'occupation du sol sur l'ensemble de la propriété. Les bétonneuses et les grues de chantier apparaissaient à leur tour, alors que s'édifiait le bureau maquette, un module expérimental destiné à étudier la charpente, les façades, les fenêtres et les faux plafonds, ainsi que les dalles constituées par des tôles ondulées reposant sur des charpentes métalliques. Les fondations proprement dites ne posaient pas de gros problèmes, le bâtiment étant construit au-dessus de la nappe phréatique et le sol étant de bonne qualité, constitué par du sable et des graviers alluvionnaires. À l'intérieur du coffrage en bois d'alors, le niveau de l'eau dans certaines fouilles était simplement abaissé par pompage continu. Si les coffrages de bois sont maintenant remplacés par des éléments métalliques, un autre changement important est intervenu depuis 1957 dans le bétonnage. Alors qu'aujourd'hui, le béton, fabriqué en usine, est apporté directement sur les lieux de travail, le chantier forain d'il y a quelques années encore voyait le béton fabriqué sur place avec ces bétonneuses qui appartiennent presque au passé. Durant des mois, l'activité fébrile du chantier se poursuivait et les structures de béton armé et de béton précontraint se développaient suivant les rythmes des travaux, nécessitant...
Bueno, perdonar, pero tenemos un tiempo limitado para el uso auditorio y aunque el vídeo es muy interesante, quizás es más conveniente pasar... you want to say something more, or you want to open the discussion?
No, my question was about this video. Is that the only way you can do the history of architecture is to try to think about the history of the construction itself. And the only way to document that is to use this medium, the film, the video, is the only way. So I'm sorry that I wasn't clever enough to respect the time limit we were given this evening, because the film would have been interesting, starting with the demolition of the Grand Hotel, leading to the construction of a new building, and the transformation of the landscape. So, what's your idea now, Carlos? You want to open a discussion?
Probablemente, dado la limitación de tiempo, lo más adecuado es abrir un turno de preguntas o cualquier cuestión que tengáis o la conferencia. Aprovechamos que está Jacques Gubler con nosotros un poco más.
Why don't you take the mic?
You said that one of the best ways to teach history is to show the documentation through video. This last video you were showing, you said is one of the best ways to teach history.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you're telling me, because the acoustic makes it impossible for me to understand what you say.
She's asking if the best way to teach history is to use the media of the video.
It's a challenge to architectural history without the use of video and the documentation on the building site. I mean, it's one of the problems of the publication. I mean, suppose there is a competition, so you publish the first, second, third, fourth, fifth prize, and then you publish the building when it's finished. What's happening between the two dates? This is, I think, fairly important. There are exceptions, of course. The most notable moment is the construction of Crystal Palace, London, 1950-51, because we have, weekly reports on the procedure. It's an event, Crystal. It's exceptional. You might document the construction of the Eiffel Tower, but this museum, for instance, is built, is used. We know it. We appreciate him. We love him. Are there any documents about the way it has been built? The excavation? I don't know. There are decisions taken during the building process. It's my feeling, but I know. What do you think?
Well, what about today? Anyone can take a video of a building going up, and so how do you determine which buildings have value and which are not good?
Yeah. What about today? What is your answer?
That was the question.
Oh, your answer to the question, yeah. No.
Well, thank you, Jacques. Thank you for all your time and your collaboration with us on this week. I hope to see you next year as well.
Oh, thank you very much, Carlos, for your nice invitation. And